So when I came here, my purpose was only and only to create awareness. Don't blame the question. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. So time and patience is very important, very important. Surgery is not just knives and cuts, it's a lot of counseling, correction and rehabilitation.
Behind every surgical mask is a reality that no social media post can truly capture. Those of us in our field, the true cost of our work isn't found in our ledger, but the responsibility we carry for our patients every single day. Hi, I'm Dr. Anukriti. As a mentor, I spend my time guiding the next generation. But today, we're looking past the textbooks. Joining with me today is Dr. Neha Agarwal, a board certified facial surgeon where a single millimeter can change the life forever. Hello, ma'am. Welcome.
Hi.
So, as a facial surgeon, you occupy a space, orthodontic, TMJ, clefts, where very few women are leading. And I wanted to dive into your life for a very long time. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
So, let's start from the beginning, ma'am. Where did you start? Where was your graduation? Tell me about the beginning of your journey.
I'm born, brought up in Delhi, so Delhiite.
Yeah, nice.
My UG undergrad BDS is from Maulana Azad Institute of Dental Sciences. My postgrad in oral and maxillofacial surgery is from Nair Hospital, Bombay. And then I went on to pursue my fellowship in cleft and craniofacial surgery from Chennai.
Oh, wow.
And then I worked as a senior resident again in Maulana Azad before shifting to Jaipur, where I started as a consultant.
So, what was your journey like, ma'am, from the start? How was your BDS days, then your masters, then your fellowship? What are the things that you carry from
Right,
the
right. So, yeah, I'm so glad you said what are the things you carry, because now when I see in hindsight, when I see my BDS, I'm so grateful that we only got to read from the best of the books. Like, you know, that time they were very strict about books, basic instrumentation, hands, in dentistry, positions and all that. And in postgrad, when I came in postgrad, I was exposed because my guide, Dr. Neelam Andrade, she used to hold a lot of conferences, workshops. So usually what happens is you know what you're taught.
Yeah.
But at our center, it was like the exposure to what other people do and what are the possibilities were too high. So I'm so glad that I got exposure to what other surgeons do, which is so important when you are selecting then your specialty. I think the turn came when I went to Chennai. So South India is currently doing leaps ahead of when it comes to technology in surgery, advancements in surgery. That's where I got exposed to navigation assisted surgeries, advanced TMJ procedures, craniofacial procedures. Something that I thought is so beyond the scope of an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. So truly being a craniofacial surgeon or a facial surgeon, that transformation happened in Chennai.
So, as we all know, my mentors are very important in our life. So, who has been your mentor, and who are the people you looked up to, and how did you decide your specialty? How did
Very
it
long question. So I'll tell you why, because mentor cannot be one person.
Definitely.
Especially in our field, as you level up, your mentors also change. So I'll start with when I was an intern. There was one Dr. Deborah Seibel. She was an SR there, and I saw her draining this abscess, and I was so awed. I was like, this is what I want to do. And the fearlessness, you know. And then when I started pursuing my PG, my guide, Dr. Neelam Andrade, uh, magnificent lady. And what she taught me was perseverance. That your field requires patience. Your field requires you to, just be at it. Never take no for an answer. Just be at it. Doesn't matter you fail, you be at it. Consistency. And when I went to Chennai, it was Dr. Anant Narayanan, and still in touch with him. I discuss almost every case with him. He taught me so much about surgery. So he's a really advanced surgeon. Also taught me other values. Like, there's a lot of what you say to show what you do. There is this need now to show what you do, but to see your results, to be appraised or critical of your results, and to how to keep noting the points, how to get into the how to run through the surgery in your mind first, figure out where you're going to have complications, and once you have complications, how to manage them. So really the finesse came there, I feel.
So, ma'am, your specialization, very less women apply and they found it a little struggling for a woman. So, how did you make that decision for applying for such specialty where it can be difficult for women?
Okay, so the gender part doesn't come when you choose. For that time, it's you and your love for surgery. Male, female, because it's merit based. You have to clear an exam, choose the field that you want.
Definitely.
The discrepancy comes when you start to practice.
True.
It never comes as a student. And because my guide was a female herself, I never felt that, oh, I'm a female and this is surgery.
Yeah.
That time it's just do. But when you actually start practicing, you realize, when you see the
That's very
patient's
true.
response, whenever you're counseling someone, that's when the women part comes more. But
Never.
ultimately, it's you and your love for surgery. It's it's like between you and your first love. That's it. But it really doesn't matter. What matters is your training, how you have been trained, how confident you are. Yes, the opportunity might come a little later because you're a woman. But once you get the opportunity, you should have the confidence to deliver the result. Once you deliver the result, then there is no man and woman.
Definitely, ma'am. Because I think what luck is when an opportunity comes and you're ready for
You're
that.
ready for it. Exactly. Everything is preparation. Everything. That's so where actually the blessing comes is where my mentors have been or how they've taught me. So I'm everything what my teachers taught me. So if I not trained that, if I was not trained that way, I would not have been so confident. So confidence comes from training and doing. So
Definitely.
yes, when you talk about opportunities, you might say that so your opportunities are just delayed. It'll never be like because you're a woman, they'll be.
They just have to know that you are good at it, and just that's the end of it. If you're good at it, at the end, it doesn't matter.
It
So,
doesn't matter. Yeah, you can never. That'll never be a hindrance. That, oh, I'm a woman. Should I take surgery? That should never come. At that point of time, it should be just you and the fact that you want to do this. And that goes for every field.
So this message goes to a lot of young female dentists who might be anticipating like if they should take up surgery or not. So if you love it and if you want to take it, definitely go for it. There is no hindrance. Only you are your own hindrance.
Absolutely.
Okay, so ma'am, your most of the day it's spent in the hospital corridor. So take us through your daily schedule, what it looks like.
I usually reach early. Spend 15 minutes with my coffee. That is more
Important.
more. Yeah. So my time. And then it's like OT rounds, patients, OPD. Usually get free by 5, then evening appointments. So it's like a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
So mostly, what do you do at the end of the day to unwind? Maybe
Nothing. Just gone, completely gone. Preparation for the next day is usually what's on my mind. So, yeah. And plus, what happens, consultations are very time consuming because you're dealing with facial surgery. People come with a lot of doubts, and it's important for you also to assess a lot of things. So, usually consultations last somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes each.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Consultation is, I think,
yeah,
very important.
yeah. So that's why OPD takes up quite a lot of your time.
Okay. So from morning you do your OT, then your rounds, and then OPD,
OPD,
and then
evening rounds.
Evening rounds.
Because the patients you have operated, you want to see them.
Okay. So imagine, ma'am, you have a big case coming up tomorrow morning. So what all you do from the day before and the morning to prepare for it, and what is your schedule like?
Typically, preparation starts a few days before only because major jaw surgeries, double jaw surgeries are very, very planned.
Okay.
So what we do is we do a run through what all we are going to need, and we make sure, because again it's jaw surgery, in a general OT they will not know what I want. So I have to make sure that We have the exact specific instruments and autoclave. The plan is ready. The splints are ready. So usually it goes like that.
So, ma'am, this the specialty you are in, whether it comes with cleft or orthodontic, it gets overlapped by other specialties like ENT and plastic surgery. So, what did it take for you to get established in this competitive world where so many different specialties want to take over, and especially at such a young age? So, take me through that.
See, it's very simple. You call it competition, I'll call it collaboration. Why would you want to, even if someone is doing the work that you're doing, why not collaborate? So we have so much overlap with ENTs. In fact, if a TMJ pain patient comes, would I not want an ENT to look at it if the cause is TMJ or ear pain, right? And when we talk about plastic surgeons, so let's say if I'm good in jaw surgery, my patient might want some soft tissue procedures also. It's
True.
not, the fields are truly not apart as such. So I do not see it as competition at all. In fact, I work with some of the great plastic surgeons in Jaipur, really good ENT surgeons here. So I don't see it at all. In fact, it's very important. Teamwork, collaboration, to have multidisciplinary. You will be able to even give much, much more satisfactory result to your patient when you are collaborating.
Yeah, that's such an important message, because a lot of people, they have this notion that you have to win them over, or just you
Yeah,
have to
yeah, it's
collaborate.
like my patient, your
Yeah,
patient. It's nobody's patient.
true.
The patient has come. You deliver. See, it's the same thing goes with dental rehabs. Every surgical patient will require orthodontics. A cleft patient will require full smile rehabilitation, prosthetic work. So if I say that, okay, I'm done, that doesn't work. Like, you'll never be able to give a good result if you just think that, if you're hesitant to refer, then yeah.
That's a great answer, ma'am, because that clears a lot of things for a lot of people who might be in the, there's, I think a lot of people are a little scared that if they should take up those fellowships, because again, they'll be in the competition with other specialties, but no.
I worked for 2 years with a plastic surgeon here in Jaipur, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot. So we have a lot to learn from other specialities,
Definitely.
and we might also teach them a thing or two, but
Yeah.
we also have a lot to learn. And you are in an ever learning field. Every field of medicine, every specialty is an ever learning field. You can never learn enough. So
True.
why not?
So even we did our last podcast with Dr. Dipesh, and he said the same thing, because he is into airway dentistry now,
Yes,
breathe right. So
yes,
he was like, we have to collaborate with ENT again
yes.
for because sleep apnea and a lot of kids. So
And I think the world has moved towards multidisciplinary management. It was earlier, let's say, reserved for many critical cases or something, but now even for elective cases, aesthetics, multidisciplinary management is all that is the patient wants, should have it.
yeah. So I think the message goes out that as anyone, even if someone who's just starting off as a dentist, collaborate with other specialities near you, with ENTs and your orthodontic surgeons, orthodontists. A lot of people, they just, they're just like in a cocoon.
Yeah.
Ki
Yeah.
dental clinic hai, dental karna, and that's it. But yeah, opening up and collaborating. Actually, when we start telling them the kind of work we're doing, a lot of general surgeons, they don't know what we're doing. And
Yes.
when we tell them, they're like, this is
Yeah,
matlab,
that's what I told you now. When I came here, I was like, awareness.
yeah.
Let us tell people. If people don't know, it is your responsibility to take forward your field. How will you? It is a justice that you do to your field when you make people aware what you do.
Yeah, great.
And it might go well, it might not go well, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You speak to 100, maybe 10 will come
10
back.
will
and-
ridicule you,
Yeah.
10 will come back. It's
Yeah.
fine.
That's great. So, ma'am, whoever is sitting and looking up to you and they follow your footsteps, so what would you tell them, and what are the different scopes after doing your master's in oral surgery?
Lot of scopes nowadays. You can go into strictly minor oral surgery, implants, implantology. We have zygomatic implants, full mouth rehabs. Then we have oncology. So a lot of fellowships open in oral oncology for maxillofacial surgeons. Then there is my favorite, cleft. So cleft repair, the mantle has been taken up by maxillofacial surgeons now. Then there is jaw surgery, orthognathic surgery, lot of scopes. There is trauma. There are few maxillofacial surgeons who are doing excellent exclusive work in trauma. Then there is something called as reconstruction, rehabilitation, secondary surgeries, rhinoplasty,
Yeah.
aesthetic surgeries. So this
Big
is
scope.
like, yeah, just to name a few.
Yeah. So imagine, ma'am, you are a fresh graduate and you've opened a new clinic. Okay. And you have maybe a 10 to 16-year-old walk in with a facial deformity. So, how do you proceed with that patient? How do you refer, and like the overall approach towards that patient and the parents, especially?
Yeah. Right. So when the patient first walks into your clinic and you have made a basic assessment that this is a facial deformity, you need to, I think the next step will be to have a joint consultation.
Okay.
So you can refer also, of course, but if you can have a meeting with the orthodontist, with the surgeon as to, and formulate a plan, various options, and then sit with the patient, explain the various options that are there. So patient might want to go conservative, patient might want to undergo a surgery, and always give an ideal treatment plan. Patient might not like it, then you obviously surgery is not something that patient answers to in the first go.
Yeah.
Patient are not come for that. So you know how periodontists do desensitization?
Yeah.
So that's how it should be done. Once a diagnosis is made, multiple consultations should be done to make the patient comfortable, and always give an ideal treatment plan. Never say that I can treat it 70%. You know, especially if it is a facial deformity. Never do that. That I can treat this, but I can't treat that. So never do that. Instead, say that we are going to call a surgeon, or I'm going to refer to, or I'm going to work with. You know, I work with people, and that I have a team. So you established authority also, that you are a person, someone who collaborates, and that will give the patient much more confidence in you, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. So give them a whole plan, like this is the part that surgeon is going to handle.
Yeah.
Then the orthodontist will handle
Yes.
that, and maybe then a prosthodontist will handle
Yes.
the further part.
Yes.
So give them a whole plan. Sit with, have a meeting with all the.
Yeah, you. So now we have virtual planning. So you can take the scans of the patient, formulate a plan, give the plan to the patient, have a consultation with the orthodontist if surgeries, if at all, is not required at all, because there are many advances now where surgery might not be required. I think the most important thing is that what patient wants.
Yeah.
Right? So you might tell the patient that patient has a facial deformity, but if the patient is not aware of it, you make the patient aware what happens, how this deformity occurs, and then you make, once the patient is more aware, the more compliant.
Okay.
Right? So once you tell the patient that this is the deformity, this is how it can be treated, then what patient wants is more important.
So Dr. Dipesh, when he was dealing with pediatric patients, he was like never make the patient sit with you in the consultation. So is there anything that
That's
they should
because
be aware?
they're dealing with children. No, I don't feel. See, my patients are either cleft children, they're very small, so
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. But all orthognatic patient, you have to make the patient sit in. Sometimes in TMJ cases, when I can see that stress is a very major component. So it is clinically it's proven that there is a research criteria that we follow where stress is one of the important causes of TMJ. In that, if I feel that the patient needs some counseling, or the stress part needs to be taken care of, then I might talk to the parents. But otherwise, no. Patient needs to sit. Even if you feel that patient is not capable of understanding, take multiple consultations.
Okay.
There's no hurry.
because they have to know, because at the end they have to live with it, the rehab
the
part and
more the
everything.
patient is aware, so whenever like any Gen Z patient comes, I'll tell them to Google it. I'll
Yeah.
tell them to read about it, because the more they read, the more questions they have. So
Mhm.
it's very easy for me also to answer the questions, because the questions are specific.
Yeah.
They have read it, they know what are the complications, they are much more compliant. More aware your patient, the more compliant he will be after surgery. And it is very important for me that post-op, the patient knows what is going to happen, what he can expect, and
Yeah.
therefore they're much more compliant. The recovery period is smooth.
I think it's true for dentistry as well,
Yes.
because like recently a lot of people, a lot of patients, they're coming with specific questions regarding root canal, like can you do it in single sitting, can you put the crown on the same day? So we can explain now. Pehle the questions were very एकदम non-specific say, generic say. Now since patients have started reading, so it has become more specific, so we can answer them more correctly and make them more compliant.
Yeah, I mean,
It's nice.
people think that people have this very in general that if your patient is more read or diagnosed on himself on Google and all that, I absolutely don't think so. Make technology your friend.
Yeah.
It's why, what is wrong if I have no knowledge over something, I will go read it. It's available, information is available on internet. Yes, there is misinformation. As an expert, it's your job to clear the myth, but why not? पेशेंट पढ़ के आएगा तो अच्छा ही है.
Yeah, that's a great advice, man. So, ma'am, up until now, you've already achieved so much. So, what are your plans for the next 5 years? And where do you think actually cleft surgery and orthodontic surgery is leading to next in the next 5 years?
I respectfully disagree. I don't think I've achieved. I think there's a lot to achieve. So yeah, again, as I said, my main motive will always be to create more awareness. There are so many patients with facial deformities who do not know that this can be done. So, and not just cleft and orthodontic, the whole scope of maxillofacial surgery, I feel there's a huge lack about just making patient aware, especially about TMJ, especially because it gets misdiagnosed, delay in diagnosis is there. By the time patient comes to me, already 5-6 neurophysicians, ENTs, and almost 3 years of consultation has been taken. Whether it is orofacial pain, TMJ pain, by the time they'll tell me that we read about something and then we realize it's TMJ, and that's when they came to us. So a lot needs to be done in that field.
Awareness
Yeah.
part.
Then I'll think that yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, ma'am, sleep apnea is coming in.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything planned for that?
So what happens? The role of maxillofacial surgeon comes in definitive surgery.
Okay.
So what you do is you bring the maxilla and mandible forward surgically. So it is a short 95% success result for sleep apnea.
Okay.
But you can there is a lot of what do you say, protocol that we have to follow. So you if it is a child, you would go towards growth modification if that can be done, right? And you first start the patient on CPAP, see whether the patient is CPAP compliant or not. So although surgery has a successful result, there are a couple of options. Then lifestyle changes have to be done. So weight loss is there. There are some intraoral surgeries that are performed by ENT surgeons. So sleep apnea, I think more awareness amongst doctors only is required. That what a maxillofacial surgeon does in sleep apnea.
Okay.
So
it's like a long way. That's
yeah,
number one,
very long.
the
way.
point where the patient is coming, at the age where
Yeah.
they're coming. So
Yeah.
it
What is
decides
the
a lot.
site of obstruction? Very, very important. So even though maxillomandibular advancement is a very good modality to treat sleep apnea, it will not be the first line of treatment. One thing. Second thing is that it is more important that the pulmonologist and the ENT and the orthodontist, they know about surgery. Then only we can go towards surgery.
Okay.
We'll never be the first point of contact in sleep apnea. That is what.
That is
Yeah.
So let's lighten up the mood, and it will be a quick rapid for you, ma'am. So let's go. Okay. 6 a.m. scheduled OT or a 2 a.m. trauma call?
2 a.m. trauma call.
Uh,
Any day.
huh?
Just
Whoa. I know it's a rapid fire, but why? Like small.
it's
I want
like
to know.
okay, it's very personal. I mean,
Okay.
it's like you love what you do. So
Uh-huh.
when you do it to an emergency trauma call, it's like this is why you do it. This is why you do it. Love it. Love
So the
emergency
adrenaline
calls.
rush and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
That's great. TMJ, where there's a quiet precision, cleft repair, where is like a visual transformation.
Cleft repair.
Cleft repair.
Cleft.
The satisfaction of that.
Maybe it's very close to my heart. Cleft is
Yeah.
something very close to my heart. Although TMJ is also very rewarding when the patient's able to eat, speak, quality of life is improved.
Yeah.
But just because they're children, so
True.
yeah.
So a silent OT or a room full of music.
Silent OT.
Yeah.
Music only when I'm doing there.
Okay. A textbook perfect case or a messy one that taught you a lot.
Textbook case.
Yeah.
Textbook case.
But the messy ones are the one that, you learn a lot from the messy ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
but usually it is not always just your mess.
Yeah.
So
True.
that's why it is always nice to start a case from scratch.
Mhm.
You plan. I like sticking to a plan. I'm a very textbook person. So
Yeah.
when I see diagnose, ortho happens, plan happens, surgery goes as planned, it's always much satisfaction. Even though you'll be able to do great in a messy case, also
Mhm.
it should not have happened in the first place. Is what I feel.
You should
That's
have
why.
been prepared.
Yeah,
So,
any day. Because again, there's no excuse for it. You
mhm.
should have been prepared.
Yeah. So the focus of the first incision or the relief of the last suture.
Focus of the first incision.
Yeah.
That is where the entire game lies.
So, this is the last round, and I want you to talk about everything and anything that you want to talk about. My questions will be small, but your answers can be as elaborative as they can be.
Okay.
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 Done. So, what is the biggest misconception you feel patients or general people have about surgeries?
Right. All facial surgeons do are aesthetic jobs. So,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So, we get this a lot that we are trying to make everyone same on,
Okay.
although there are facial proportions,
Mhm.
we don't look at making people beautiful. We look at correcting a deformity,
Mhm.
right? If it is deficient, it is excess, we try to balance it. So
Okay.
there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Beauty is a byproduct of balance.
Mhm.
So
True.
as a surgeon, whatever surgery it is a lip, nose, jaws, any surgery that is, it is more of a functional correction that beauty becomes a byproduct of it. So, and so many people say that people are getting surgery hungry
Mhm.
because of Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever, but that is not true. What people are actually looking for is a bit of confidence, right? And if your surgery can do that, then you go ahead with the surgery.
Got
So
it.
it's on. It's the surgeons are not about knives and cuts.
Mhm.
It is about counseling, correction of deformity, functional optimism, and thus the surgery.
Okay. So there was this small anecdote I read somewhere that there are a lot of people, like, even after getting a plastic surgery done, if they're not mentally,
Right.
counseled enough for it, they'll still see the deformity.
Yes.
And some people, even with little change and बहुत change नहीं हुआ, they'll be very happy with
Very
it.
happy.
So it's the counseling and at the end your outlook towards
Yeah,
it.
so when you're training, this is taught to you.
Mhm.
There are 2-3 things that you need to see when you're counseling the patient. First is internal motivation or external motivation. Someone told you, okay, this is missing, that is missing, you have a
Mhm.
double chin.
Yeah.
It's some external factor.
Got
So then what will happen? The outcome of surgery will also depend on that external validation.
Yeah.
Everybody's life has significant others. There are people in your life whose opinion matter to you a lot.
Definitely, yeah.
So if they say ki, surgery result is not good, then it is not good. No matter how much you are happy.
Okay.
So external versus internal motivation. Second is realistic versus unrealistic expectations. So this is how my face looks, this is how I want. That is why a detailed consultation as to what the patient wants, what the
Mhm.
patient feels is wrong. My
About
chin
that,
is
sure.
short, my teeth are too forward. It is very important to address that.
So, ma'am, one thing that you would tell your younger self on the first day of residency.
I can say this now. I won't have said this then. But
Uh-huh.
yes, that you are choosing a field that is ever developing. So learn the art, read a lot, and eternal patience.
Yeah, patience, everything
Yeah.
from the first step to the last step.
It's like
Mhm.
don't do the crime if you can't do the time. So
Okay.
time and patience is very important. Very important.
Got it. So this can be small, this can be elaborate, your call. Uh, Describe seeing a child's new smile after a surgery in a few words or
One word.
one
It's
word.
one word. It's delight. It's the synonyms of delight. It's happiness, it's bliss, it's sublime. All say.
Is there anything specific you say to the patient like right before anesthesia?
I didn't realize this, but I think I do. So whether it's a child or a adult, Hana, you keep your hand on their forehead and you say that we'll meet on the other side with a big smile.
Oh, that's sweet. So this has been so refreshing, ma'am. We often get lost in the technicalities, but today we actually got to know what actually matters, the compassion you have for the patient which lies behind the surgery. You know, the surgery is the technical part, but the human connect, the compassion, and the motivation which lies behind the surgery is what matters. So, thank you so much for your honesty, ma'am, and your expertise and telling us the reality of what you do. And everyone watching, remember to practice with soul.